latest capital importation report by Nigeria's National Bureau of Statistics shows that the Nigerian economy attracted a total of $16.81 billion in 2018. The figures are largely supported by portfolio investments, which accounted for 70% of total capital importation for the period, while foreign direct investments accounted for 7.11%. Since its creation, the primary assignment of the Oil and Gas Free Zones Authority has been to attract investments, create jobs, boost trade and foreign earnings, as well as facilitate knowledge exchange within Nigeria. While the authority says the results of its strategies are obvious, it insists it will not rest on its oars, as it recently worked with PricewaterhouseCoopers Nigeria to conduct a diagnostic review of its mandate.
When we started in the authority, one of our free zones that we started regulating, we came to meet on board is the Oil and Gas Free Zone only. And today, it has been well established by record, is one of the most successful oil and gas free zone in Africa. And if you look at the impact it has, all the other zones today, it has transformed the Nigerian economy. It has created a lot of jobs. It has created a lot of skills. It has, in fact, made that place to be centers. Wherever you see an oil and gas free zones, it has dominated and created that place to be a hub, a centers of activities. And there's what you call a multiplier effect based on the activity that is going on as a result of creating direct and indirect jobs. And so far, on record in the country, based on investment drive, over 60% of investment drive into the country, Nigeria, for the past 10 years are through the free zones.
PwC has been working with OXA for the best part of nine months now, and we've helped them conduct a diagnostic exercise of themselves, which is quite special and unusual because it's not often that we get institutions inviting us to come in and conduct, an assessment of them while they are alive. We typically do this when the organizations are on their knees or about to die or dead. But OXA invited us in to say, okay, help us review what we do and compare us to other zones around the world and tell us how we're performing. And I think after that exercise, I can say that OXA is doing quite well. It's probably the single dedicated oil and gas free zone authority around the world. If there are others, we haven't found any, but for an organization, an authority that's dedicated to just regulating and ensuring that there are investment in oil and gas free zones in a particular country, OXA stands alone.
And to add to it, our mandate has to do with establishment, managing, licensing, all the free zones that has to do with oil and gas and hydrocarbon in the country.
PwC Nigeria's manager for corporate finance, Thomas Boateng, says it is impressive that the OGFZA would demand to be assessed. He gives out more insight into the nature of the findings and plans to reach out to investors.
We did examine OXA's mandate. We did examine some of the already operating oil and gas free zones and the ones that are already in pipelines, the inactive ones, and try to identify those that are ripe for investment, which would attract the best investment from around the world, and where these investments are going to come from. So that's the sort of work that we did. We are going to have a second phase of this engagement, which is to try to assist OXA to bring in investment from around the world. So right now what we've done is put together marketing materials, teaser, information memorandum, investor presentations that we're going to take to prospective investors around the world. You name them, from Austria, China, through to Brazil and elsewhere, to try to find investors that typically put money into oil and gas infrastructure to attract them to these free zones that OXA has, including Notori and Ipokeri.
For the Oil and Gas Free Zones Authority, beyond seeking FDI, competitive advantage should be one of the highest priorities for the success of any free zones. While Onne, Notore and some of its other zones are rated highly by professionals, the OGFZA's head of trade and investment, Adamu Kotangora, says the benefits that accrue from the convergence of certain free zones are strategic.
If you look at the oil and gas free zones they have a highest level of competitive advantage. Besides, if you look at Nigerian economy, oil and gas is predominant with what we have. And for any free zone to succeed, competitive advantage is one of the highest priority. And we are into oil and gas in the country, and we have such kind of priorities. And two, if you look at the location matters. And if you look at all these zones that we are managing, they are along the coast. So many advantages that has to do with oil and gas are in there. And we look at our regulatory situations and the way Oil and Gas Free Zone Authority manage these zones. We take care of, we license them, not only licensing them, we ensure that whatever government decided to make as part of incentives, we ensure that it reaches the investors. And the authority established, we have an existing client services unit, and which is mainly dealing with customers, investors interface. We don't register a free zone and leave it, sorry, an investor, we leave it. No, we followed up to ensure that whatever is needed of them, whatever is their complaint, whatever government promised to give them, we ensure that it reaches them as specified by the law.
The sort of the agglomeration of some of these free zones around each other. So Onne, Notori, Ipokri, they're all within a certain radius of each other and sort of benefiting a lot from the infrastructure development that has already happened. As of right now, there is conversation about bringing on stream a gas pipeline onto Onne, from which gas could be supplied to furnaces, to turbines, to ovens. So in terms of sharing infrastructure, which helps to reduce costs, there's a great deal of advantage. These various OXA free zones, there are about 10 of them, 4 of them which are active, 6 of them inactive or in the process of development. And we compare them in terms of availability of space, in terms of occupancy, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of proximity to the market, and in terms of access to transportation, i.e. port access. Some of them are better situated in terms of all these various characteristics than others. We found out that Notori and Onne are doing exceptionally well. And actually, if you look at the FDI intelligence, which is a publication by the Financial Times that ranks free zones around the world, they typically rank Onne and Notori as among the best free zones in the world.
And before now, pipe coating and trading used to be taken to the overseas, like in Holland and Texas, Houston. And look at the type of time wasting, risks involved, but all these things have been done here today. And so many things have been done. Now, with the presence of the free zones, we can see that a lot of Nigerians have been employed, and a lot of technology has been transferred. We have an instance of companies that do come with expatriate, over 30 or 40, 50 of them. But today, it is Nigerians that they have taken over. It is today is Nigerians that are managing it. So many impacts are there. One, the FDI is there, and the technology is there. The skills are there, and it has a multiplier effect. And if you look at all these zones around, apart from the people working directly, the indirect ones within the neighborhood of the zones, you see a lot of people establishing some businesses, and which is in line with what government is looking at today. Yeah, the comparative advantage we are talking about, like what I see, just like the proximity to resources that all the investors required. And there is what we call diversifications as well. where some companies that are grouping together, working, they have a kind of interrelations based on the requirements of what other companies need from them.
As Nigeria moves to shore up its foreign investments, the OGFZA's capital protection focus comes to the fore, even as experts maintain that this may be one quick way to assure investors.
Well, so capital protection comes in typically one form. Can you get your money back, right? And so far, the regulation allows investors to get their money back and to take profits out. So in terms of legal and regulatory means, yes, they have the support to do that. Of course, the challenge comes with practicality, right? We saw with the recent recession and with attendant currency crisis. So even if you are permitted to take your money out, where are you going to find the dollars, and what impact would that have on Nigeria's naira? So there are some limitations as to the practicality of repatriation, but that's not really Oxford's fault. It's something we all deal with. From what I have seen, I think they are taking steps in the right direction to sort of make their impact really felt. Rarely do you see a regulatory body take an active role in promoting the area that they are supposed to regulate. Typically, regulators would make rules, enforce rules, and mete out punishments when these rules are flouted. But Oxa is taking the added step of actually supporting these zones by conducting investor roadshows, doing the diagnostic that they brought us in to do, and speaking with investors and trying to bring in actual investment into these zones. This will give a lot of confidence to investors that this is not a passive regulator, this is a very active regulator, this is a forward-thinking regulator. So I think it's a step in the right direction and something that should be encouraged.